Perfect. So first, thank you very much for joining us today. I know I'm standing in between you and happy hour, so we're going to make this a little bit fun, light, and I promise you we'll be on pace. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the journey of streaming, talk to you a little bit about the way we've been discussing this with customers around the data maturity journey and some of the challenges and the ways that we believe at Conductor we're helping people unlock the value and really bring streaming deeper into a mission-critical capability. High-level agenda. One more time. There we go. A couple key topics we're going to talk about today. Again, hopefully keeping it pretty light. Want to talk about the evolution, explore a little bit around the data maturity journey, show you how we're framing this up at Conductor, and then get into some of the challenges and solutions of what we're focused on. So before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about the evolution, and I'm going to bring up a couple numbers, try to get you engaged a little bit, have a little fun together. So first, what do you think that represents? There's a Confluent guy in the room who's got to know this one. Okay, so Confluent Cloud processes 8 trillion messages every single day. So putting that in context, that is groundbreaking around even what the capability is able to do for their customers, and it is literally changing the world, from automotive to manufacturing, retail, healthcare. What the Confluent team has done has, I think, put in a ground-marking ability for Kafka to be produced and operate at scale. 1.3 trillion. Anybody know what this one is? So PayPal handled 1.3 trillion messages in one day, all based on, obviously, Kafka. And the concept of Black Friday as we know it, I think will never be the same, mostly, again, because of Amazon and my wife and my credit card. But the concepts of how fast this is changing in the last few years, again, is changing the world. 3.2 hours. Any idea what this one is? So on average, 3.2 hours daily is the concept of what Netflix engagement and, again, the customer experience engagement. My daughter and I have put a lot of time into Is It Cake, and I'm pretty sure that we filled up some of those statistics ourselves. But the recommendation engine, again, the ability to bring the direct-to-consumer experience and guide us through that journey, whether it's brick and mortar, click and mortar, or obviously a digital streaming service, all on the backbones of Kafka. Last, 25%. No, it's not the increase in the fee next year for Stream Native. 25% is the critical business applications that are expected to have a failure or have a disruption due to poor data quality, due to challenges of information from the source that is now making it into the database or into the application or into the consumer's digital experience. So why is this happening, and how would we frame it up? So the concept of data lakes or data warehouses, 10 plus years right now, been synonymous with, I think, a lot of the transportation, whether it is around foundation models, whether it's around ML ops, AI ops. How do you start to bring data in a centralized place to then build applications or build analytics on top? The problem statement is many companies, while have great aspirations for this, have not been able to transform and get the true power of what a data lake is supposed to provide. And so the concepts of structured and governed data isn't as easy as people think. And more often than not, what happens is a data swamp through data pollution, through the inability to keep governance, to keep policies, to keep teams aligned with the volume, variety, velocity of data that is flowing in. People start to run into challenges, and they aren't able to get the accuracy, the value of what they were hoping to get from their data lake. And obviously, all of the challenges around cost, around speed, around risk starts to become a bigger issue, and it slows down the whole purpose of having a centralized data approach. So where does it really come from? If you look through a widely debated, is this the right way to visualize this or not, between marketing and a CTO, and I get stuck in the middle, not my decision, right? But I think if you think about it at the highest level, the data architecture has come a long way. The infrastructure, the transport right? 20 years ago, frame ATM networks, convergence of then MPLS networks, the boom of the internet, the boom of mobile devices, the expansion of now data everywhere, and companies becoming both software companies and now becoming GenAI companies. The evolution, the innovations, we've come a long way, but we clearly still have a long way to go. And I think one of the tipping points of this, there's a few, the concept of centralized deployments, centralized teams, but then the bottlenecks that occurred. The concept of shifting to data lakes or shifting to data warehouses, but then the governance, the cost, the policy controls started to inundate teams. Then the major inflection point, the advent of Kafka, the ability to streamline messages, to streamline storage, and to bring real-time data to the right person at the right time via the right vehicle, started to change the world, along with a lot of other CNCF projects, Kubernetes, OpenTelemetry. But as we got into this decentralized place that we're now in, there needed to become a new fabric, a new way to transport and store information and make it more available. And today, modern models, data fabrics, data meshes, LLMs, and everything in between around how do I now take one of my most valuable assets, my people, and the data that I'm getting both from my people's interactions internally in my business and the flow metrics, the metrics from our customers, from our partners, and from the interactions between humans, technologies, and everything in between. So the way we start to think about this and what we've heard from many of our happiest customers and some of our new ones to come, and there's different ways to assess this, but basically we've heard from customers that they're in these 4 different stages of data maturity journey. The first around gathering and visualizing. And the way we think about this really is it's the process of representing data in a visual format, the naming conventions, the analysis of large amounts of data, the compartmentalizing that and putting it in a framework that others can use and collaborate on. Then to securing and scaling. And the concepts, again, of providing a more cohesive view, a larger scale view to deal with the volumes, but also starting to create security as a service or service as a software approaches so that security is everyone's responsibility. The shift left testing, the ability for keys and security interactions not to just be a securities team responsibility or a developer's responsibility, but everyone's responsibility. And then the next stage of the integration and collaboration, the transition from the magic word of DevOps to now the more nomenclature around platform engineering, platform as a service, and the cohesiveness of build it, own it, deploy it, run it, scale it through a cohesive approach of one team, one philosophy, whether that's shift left, shift right testing, or it's the ability to start to create a more centralized way for people to collaborate around data in a real-time approach. Sounds easy, but it's still a massive challenge, whether you're trying to build out an observability practice, whether you're trying to build out a centralized key rotation strategy. I wish it was as easy. Well, sometimes I don't because we all get paid a lot of money to work on these problems, but it becomes a problem for the vendors, it becomes a problem for the hyperscalers, and it's obviously a problem for customers like yourselves. And so when we think about this it gets around, again, providing a cohesive approach, breaking down data silos, we hear that a lot, and then shifting to how do I allow people to harness data the right way, get the right access, but also protect the things that people shouldn't see and not make it all in the developer's responsibility. And then finally around monetizing and differentiation. I think, again, every company, Ben Horowitz and Mark Andreessen talked about how every company was going to become a software company. Well, I think every company is obviously now, and every engineer is becoming a Gen AI company. Every company is becoming a data company. And we went through this surge of big data, data analytics, ML ops. And now if you're thinking about through the lens of SageMaker, Bedrock, and the new foundation models, the concepts of how do I repave the infrastructure, repave my approach to bringing the right analytics, the right engines to people to do their job faster with speed and precision, but also with controls and compliance. It can't just be one team's responsibility if you're going to leverage data as a monetization arm. So again, we think about this around involving data not just to, again, help speed decisions, but actually to help differentiate decisions and bring unique value to the market. And so what we group this into, and there's more, but if you just to centralize around some of the key use cases across these stages, again, we don't think it's a linear journey where you're at one stage and you mature to the next, like graduating first grade to second grade. We believe there's different teams across different stages, there's different use cases, there's different applications that really transcend a few of these. If you are a fintech company, you've been integrating, collaborating, and monetizing data probably since you were invented. If you're a CPG retail company, you're probably still working through the securing and scaling and collaborating with third-party data sources and trying to bring that in a more cohesive view to their basket size transactions or brick and mortar and click and mortar interactions. So what we think about here again on some of these key use cases is how do companies start to visualize, bring information to the right place at the right time, but also keeping the audit policy and controls in place so that they know when changes are made. They know who went in and updated or edited a golden image and how it got redistributed across 3 different teams. And they can always go back to the source without guessing or spinning up war rooms and pointing the finger at the infrastructure team. So again, we think about the evolution of this is clearly headed towards a place where AI and the use cases that we see as mostly internal use cases start to transform to not just a chatbot interaction, but to a guided action sequence where an AI is, think of a co-pilot from a sales perspective, helping someone make the right decisions at the right times and sequence the right steps with not even just an interaction, but with guidance and support. That all comes down to data quality. That all comes down to actioning data with more speed and precision. So when we think about, again, kind of from the evolution to what's the challenge, well, there's many, but we framed up a couple key ones. Poor data quality from the source, having the inability to decipher and determine are these data sources, is the information flowing into my LLMs creating hallucinations? Do we have accuracy problems? How do we know that? How do I know that before we find out the hard way? Incomplete data, back to the visualizing and gathering. How do we make sure that we break data silos, but at the same time, keep things with the right messages, the right topics, the right layers, so that we can work on it, adapt, and then bring it into a more cohesive, centralized approach as we go forward. And then inconsistencies. Again, the concept of there's either changes to the data, there's data that 30 days ago was super valuable to now, no one even understands what it means. How do I start to bring rhyme or reason to that? What is my approach to having a simplified way? And then obviously the concept of the golden image, or what happens truly from real-time data. How do I make that more available and executable? The really thing I think that we came to talk about, the challenge around, which is again synonymous with all the beautiful work Confluent's been doing on the shift left concepts that aren't new but are starting to become more rapidly available and usable, around how do I improve data at the source? How do I reduce or how do I adjust poison pill messages? How do I start to implement something that gives people the ability to say, yes, we know what data is going in, and I can improve the quality of that before it lands in my lake and creates a swamp? And so the concept, again, across people, systems, and processes are not new, but who owns what data, who provides the source, the security measures, the policies to scale, and the policies to adopt and integrate. And a lot of these questions, depending on what stage of the maturity journey you're on, are still things people are trying to determine on their own or build open source capabilities to bring to market. And again, I think it's taking an undue amount of time, energy, and resources. And the hidden consequences of this, right? So if you just think about the cost, the time impact, and the delay of innovation, these numbers aren't getting better, they're actually getting worse. While cybersecurity dwell time is improving, the cost, the manual task and toil to bring some AI use cases to market is getting worse. The on-call time for developers is getting worse. The ability for people to obviously spend money and improve the LLMs and get value out of it faster, no company is fixing that yet. We have most people using AI use cases to look up things that could be done with a Google search. And it's costing open companies $2 to $5 at every query. So that's not scalable. And a big part of it, not the only part. Nuclear energy is one part of the equation potentially. The real big part that's controllable is data quality. And starting to shift earlier in the cycle to create controls, to create policies, to make sure that the right data is going in. Observability capabilities will help with this. I believe Kafka and streaming and creating a centralized or self-service approach to making Kafka more readily available is a huge part of this. So how do we do it? Well, again, teams, people, great talent, and lots of hard work. But I believe it's the evolution. And one of the keynotes today, the CEO spoke about this, the blurring of what's going on across a data lake, a data warehouse, and Kafka. How Kafka is becoming the new lakehouse approach. How this is all, I believe the walls are coming down. And one of the most overused words still evolving around a data mesh and a fabric. And how do you provide a control layer, an abstraction layer above that simplifies the approach of bringing data to the right people and, again, the right actions. And so this shift of a centralized approach to a self-service takes governance controls, takes policy controls, takes a change in how do you think about removing the manual task and toil and what people need to know about Kafka to get value out of it. And so what does this look like with the quality first approach? Well, again, through the shift left testing, looking at the traditional quality models, blurring batch and real-time data together, that's the new norm. That's what we believe is going to become one of the big tipping points of this. And so whether that is looking at the planning stage of before code is committed, how do we know if we have good controls in place? How do we know if the DORA metrics we're seeing around quality release frequency is getting better or if it's stagnant? If you keep releasing and you keep thinking the data is good and you think your LLMs are going to be improving, your hallucinations likely are going to go up. Your cost of LLMs will likely go up. And someone is eventually going to be asking you, why are we doing this on our own? What did we do wrong? So there are different ways to go about it. We believe these 4 stages and looking at and breaking down pragmatically, where are we in the data maturity journey? What are the big vendors we're betting on to help us mature through these aspects? And how are we unlocking the power of data? Not, I think, in the traditional way, but now with new tools, with new capabilities. Again, thinking about how we're going to gather and visualize, bring the right information to the right source, securing, scaling, obviously all the way through monetizing and differentiation. So in action, what do we do at Conductor? We are an enterprise data management platform. We were designed and built for Kafka to sit as an EDM layer. Our goal is to help increase the utilization and value that people are getting from their data, mitigate the risk, both across cyber risk and operational risk, mean time to detect, mean time to repair, bringing actions and insights to more controlled remediation steps with observability for Kafka, and ultimately helping connect the people and processes with greater controls to make Kafka, I believe, just continuing to untap and get more value from whatever you're doing with Kafka. And we've been doing this for companies for the last few years. If you look at some of the more advanced things that we're doing, or some of the problems of some of the more advanced use cases we're doing, really around breaking down the silos and decentralized approaches, helping with self-service capabilities, bringing some of the third-party data sharing to light, both inside and outside the business, whether that's for an insurance company, whether that's for a payment company, a large financial service company, manufacturing company, but helping them bring and share their data both inside and out their business to accelerate the time to innovation, the time to deploy. And most importantly, one of the most important aspects is increasing the cyber materiality posture through end-to-end encryption, through granular RBAC controls, and the ability to, again, provide the right types of policies, the right level of security, whether it's crypto shredding, whether it's de-encrypted capabilities, or truly end-to-end security measures. And last and certainly not least, if you're interested in a Meta Quest 3, come on down and scan, and we're giving one away at the end of the day. So I told you I'd be brief. I have 2 minutes to spare, right on time, and hopefully gave you a little bit of entertainment and some thoughts on your next Kafka project.